The patch notes of the upcoming 1.04 update set to be released on the 7th of May have been officially revealed. This includes huge balance changes that significantly change the strength of most of the characters on the Tekken 8 roster. Characters that were significantly strong like Dragunov, Fang, Azucena have been nerfed, while characters that are not very popular and significantly weak such as Asuka, the Bears, and Leroy have been buffed. Now one of these characters and the characters we're focusing on for this video is Leroy Smith. Leroy has been notoriously bad so far in Tekken 8, or at least significantly worse than his Tekken 7 counterpart. A lot of things have changed in Tekken 8 and unfortunately they have not been in Leroy's favor. However, in this update, this man has received some really crazy buffs. Like, he's significantly way better right now after the updates. Like, it's crazy. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into Leroy's Tekken 8 changes for the update 1.04. Okay, so the first big change is the fact that Leroy can now access his Hermit sidestep 1+2 from a standard sidestep. Like, this is ridiculous. It is so huge. +7 for free from a normal sidestep. Like, it's insane. It's insane. It's really good, and the range for this move has always been ridiculous. This will be very strong as a mix-up, especially considering the fact that you have an orbital, right? So imagine Leroy in your face, boom, he sidesteps. Then he does an orbital. You're expecting the 1+2, but he does an orbital, right? He does other mids as well as a mix-up. It's gonna be so good. Like, Leroy doesn't really have access to plus frames for neutral, right? Doesn't really have anything good in terms of plus frames unless you're in Hermit. So this sidestep 1+2 is gonna be very strong. And furthermore, Leroy doesn't really have access to a good like rapid strike for his chip damage gimmick in hit. The best option you had before now was his 1+2, right? The 14 frame punisher for chip. But now sidestep 1+2 will be a very strong option, to be a better option. Remember, it's +7. Like, that's ridiculous. So you have a mix-up plus high move, which you can access from sidestep as a mix-up as well with your orbital and like super chip damage just in hit. Like, it's a huge change, man. This is a huge buff. Another huge buff for Leroy is the fact that his hit smash now deals 50 more damage from 41. The patch notes say 43 to 50, but it's actually 41, as you can see me doing it right now. Now this is huge, right? There's no reason why characters like King, Devojin should have 50, 60 damage hit smashes, while Leroy has like 40, right? It's pretty stupid, right? So his hit has always been good. On block, it does the most amount of chip damage in the game. So having a damage buff is another huge buff for Leroy, man. Huge dab. Another huge change for Leroy is the fact that all his rapid strikes will now recover his hit gauge on hit. This is huge, and if you guys remember in my Leroy video, I did talk about this. It sucked that you lost some hit for doing combos. Like, for adding if you added any rapid punch moves in your combos, you would lose hit gauge, which sucked. So now, instead of losing hit gauge, you actually gain hit gauge. Like, this is insane. Think of it like Raven's clones, right? Whenever Raven lands his clones on hit, he regains some hit gauge. So this applies to Leroy now, which is ridiculous. So as long as you're hitting your opponent, you keep on feeling that hit gauge, meaning you have more of an opportunity to deal some massive amounts of chip damage, because you always have your hit as long as you land those rapid punches on hit. Okay, and this one is a huge quality of life change for Leroy, man. A very good change. So as a Leroy player, I'm sure you've been in a situation where you're about to run out of hit, right? Like, you have a pixel of hit gauge left and you try to do 1+2 or Hermit 1+2 into hit dash, right? But because you run out of hit before going into the hit dash, you get launched for it, right? The hit gauge depletes before you can actually go into hit dash. This has happened to me so many times, but now if you're left with a pixel and you do 1+2 into hit dash, the hit dash will come out no matter what. You won't run out of the hit gauge no matter what. A huge quality of life improvement, man. Okay, another notable change for Leroy is the fact that 1+2 is now safe at -9. It's -13 as of right now. However, the wording on the patch note says opponents recovers 4 frames slower, or the recovery has been increased by 4 frames, their recovery. From what I understand, is if the opponent recovers 4 frames slower, that means the move is 4 frames, faster for you. So meaning it's -9. I might be wrong. Please take this with a grain of salt. The wording is a bit confusing, but from what I get from this is that 1+2 is now -9, which is safe. Now this makes sense considering it is a high, I didn't understand why it was not safe. Like, the opponents just have to duck and punish it, right? So now if they don't duck and you do this move, you still stay safe at -9, which makes much more sense. Another huge change for Leroy around his 1+2. So 1+2 goes from -6 to -2, and 1+2 goes from -9 to -2 as well. So basically it's like a goated down forward 1, right? You can move afterwards. Like, this is huge. As you can see, most of his rapid punch moves are getting really buffed. Like, they want to make him a very, you know, effective chip damage character with the rapid punches of his archetype, of course. So this is huge. Being able to move after 1+2, dude, like, it's ridiculous. -2 is ridiculous. You can move, implement more of a chip damage mix-ups whilst in hit, and like, this is what Leroy is supposed to do. I've stressed that enough. Parries and chip damage, that's his archetype with the Wing Chun rapid strike. So again, huge change for Leroy. Okay, following the trend of his rapid strike punches getting buffed, down forward 1+2 has been buffed as well, reduced frames by 4 frames. Now I don't understand if they mean on hit or on block, because I have not mentioned this, so I'm guessing it's across the board, meaning on hit goes from 0 to +4, then on block it goes from -6 to -2, right? Because almost every rapid punch is going from, you know, whatever it was to -2, meaning he can move afterwards. Now this again is huge. Being able to move after down forward 1+2 is huge. Again, you can initiate more of your chip damage pressure, your chip damage mix-ups, and again, down forward 1 into 1+2 on hit going from 0 to +4 again is huge. I've always wondered why it was 0 even on block. Like, it doesn't make sense. So this again is another huge change for Leroy, man. Like, Leroy in hit will be very scary, and his pressure close range will be ridiculous. Like, huge change. So another change to his parry, not that significant, but he now replenishes more hit for landing his parries. Of course, we did talk about how Leroy's archetype in hit involves him recovering some hit gauge when he does a parry, and this also applies to his rapid punches after the parry. Now, instead of losing hit, as you can see here, when he lands rapid strikes, he loses hit, right? So instead of losing hit, now you gain hit, which is pretty good, man. I love this change, guys. You have no idea. If you play Raven, you know what I mean. Like, just having hit for landing hits as a reward just feels good, man. So again, following the trend of his rapid punches being buffed, his forward 3-1+2 while standing 3-1+2 is now -8, or at least the patch notes say the opponent's recovery has 4 frames on block, right, after blocking this move, which basically means that's 4 frames less from your side, so -8 on block now. And the best part about this is now this move jails, so it's safe and it jails. You can't duck the second hit anymore, meaning this is guaranteed chip damage now whilst in hit, which is pretty ridiculous. Remember I said Leroy has no go-to safe mid or safe move to chip your opponent when you're in hit. Everything he throws out is either a high or a mid if you are in Hermit, but now it jails on block and it's a mid. So this will be your go-to guaranteed chip damage move that you throw out whilst in hit. Pretty significant change for Leroy. I'm telling you, this buff Leroy is receiving, yeah, he's gonna be way more fun to play after this patch. Trust me, he is really good. So the damage of his punch parry, the back 2 version, not just frame, the damage has been increased from 33 to 38, I think 5 more points of damage, and it will also induce a wall stun now at the wall. So kind of like that animation where they like bounce back on the wall, and it's like super plus, right? So yeah, a pretty decent change. The damage of his just frame punch parry after back 2 has also been increased by 5 more points of damage, so from 35 to 40, and the description says it will now allow for a follow-up attack afterwards. So I'm guessing it does a knockdown. Maybe you can follow up with down back 2 1+2, maybe it's like a knockback and allows you to follow up with up forward 3+4 1+2, but having a 40 damage just frame punch parry with a follow-up after, that's a lot of damage. That's a lot. So this is what I talked about in my video lastly, right? Leroy needs more high reward from landing these parries because they're not as strong. You know, the grabs are super OP right now. So this is a huge change, man. It's a huge change. They're really making his archetype stand out and making Leroy be that parry and chip damage god. I love it, man. Huge change. I can't wait to see what this looks like when the patch drops. So again, following the trend of his rapid strikes getting buffed, his Hermit 1+2 now goes from -9 to -2, just like 1+2 1+2 as well. Then on hit it goes from -3 to I believe +5, just making it easier to hit confirm. But honestly, hit confirming this move is easy right now. This buff was, you know, not really needed needed, but it's still welcomed. I mean, who am I to complain? But overall, the 1+2 being -2 on block now from -9 is huge. It's basically like I said, a better down forward one, but like, you know, it's in stance, so you can still move afterwards, which is good. You can like bait out their what they'll throw out with like back 1+2. Like, and I forgot to mention this, most of his rapid punches being like -2 now makes his counter hit game even more scary. Like back 1+2 feels so useless right now, not as overall effective as it was in Tekken 7, but like having these rapid punch moves now being -2, oh my god, it's either Leroy side steps, he baits you with like a back 1+2, like it's gonna be so ridiculous close range. It's gonna be so good, man. I can't wait. Another really good change. And finally, another huge buff to his back 3. Firstly, the damage goes from 20 to 27, so 7 more points of damage, which is huge. The frames go from +8 to +9 on block, which is again huge. And lastly, which is perhaps the biggest buff, and if it means what I think it means, the patch notes say the behavior has been changed, right? On normal hit, the behavior will be the same as it is on counter hit. So if that means what I think it means, they're saying you'll be able to get follow-up attacks after this move lands even on normal hits. You can get like Hermit 1+2 on normal hit and Hermit 4 3+4 after you land the back 3 on normal hit and not counter hit. Now this is huge, and we actually have a character that has this as well in the game. Steve up back 2 guarantees you a Sonic Fang on normal hit, right? It also guarantees you pick up 1 on normal hit, so it's not new. We've seen this in the game, and it makes sense kinda, because back 3 is very slow. It's very risky, as we all know. It's a high, right? So yeah, it's a huge buff, man. Normal hit guaranteeing you a follow-up, what? Yeah, Leroy is looking good, boys. I can't really complain. Another huge buff. So there you have it, guys, every huge significant change that Leroy will get on this upcoming patch next month. Now, I haven't added a few of the changes. They improved some tracking issues on his down forward 1, down back 1+2, up forward 2, and his pimp cane attacks. Now, I haven't added this because for these you actually have to test it to see just how good the tracking is, but Leroy is very linear in this game, so this can also be a huge buff considerably. We're gonna have to test it. Now, my thoughts: is Leroy the next Dragunov, Azucena, Fang, Xiao Yu, right? No, not close, but he is a very strong character right now. After these patches, dude, a buff to frame data is a really good buff, right? So Leroy has received so much buffs to his frame data of his rapid punches that this really improves his pressure, especially in hit. He's gonna be a monster in hit in terms of chip damage and just plus frames. That's side step 1+2. His counter hit 2s, the frame traps, he's gonna be so good. I can't really place him right now on a tier list. I can't really say how good he is because the patch hasn't even dropped yet. But if I were to make a prediction, I would say somewhere as good as, I want to say Shaheen, maybe even Lars, maybe, but like it's so early, guys. We have to wait and see just how strong or how significant the patch really is. But as a Leroy player, man, I'm excited. I'm hella happy. I will upload some matches of Leroy. I know he's missing on my channel, but yeah, a lot of Leroy content coming out, my boys. Please subscribe if you're new, and don't forget to that like button from your boy. May the frame data be ever in your favor, and GG.